My name is Cole Anderson. I'm 40 and was married for 9 years when the events occurred. I'm an inveterate tinkerer and found that a lot of people wanted some of the things I created. I am the author of several patents for gadgets. I sold my patents, and because of my uneasy feelings, I sent the payment to a trust fund until I could straighten out my life. I was 22 and had just gotten out of the Army after 3 years of service. I had been a medical equipment repair technician. What I learned in the service was I like to work on and with equipment. I found a day job repairing bakery equipment at a wholesale bakery. At night, I was going to college, finishing my degree in electrical engineering. I was dating on and off with some ladies from my high school days and some I met after I was discharged. I was at a local lounge on a Friday night keeping company with a beer. I scanned the crowd and saw one of the ladies that I knew from work in a booth for 4 sitting with a couple of ladies. As there were people waiting for a place at the bar, I went over to Joan Kaiser and asked if I could share the booth. She checked with her booth mates and they agreed. I sat down and I made my introduction, and Joan introduced me to Sally Cooper and Carol Wunderlich, her booth mates. I was very impressed with Sally. Carol not so much, she just rubbed me wrong. I did not dislike her. I just wasn't comfortable near her. She wasn't unfriendly nor was she snarky. We just didn't mesh. Sally moved over so I could sit in the booth next to her. Joan and I caught up with each other non-work lives. I tried to make conversation with Carol, but we just were not communicating. Sally was listening intently as I tried to draw Carol out. When she saw that it wasn't working, she asked me to move so she could use the restroom. Of course, with more than one lady there was a committee meeting and I was suddenly in the booth alone. At least the ladies asked me to watch their purses. When the meeting was over, Joan came back and grabbed her and Carol's stuff. She told Sally and me that Carol was not feeling well and she was taking her home. That left me with Sally in a very awkward few moments. I asked Sally if she wanted to leave or for me to leave. She said no, and she then thanked me for trying to talk to Carol. It seems that Carol caught her fiancé sleeping with an old girlfriend and was at least temporarily mad at all men. We ended up talking the rest of the evening as if there was no one else in the place. After a couple of hours of beer and pizza, I talked Sally out of her phone number and promised to call her. As we were leaving, I offered her a ride and was turned down. She had her own car there. She had not ridden with Joan. I called Sally the next day and we set up a date for the next weekend. We went to a play at one of the local theater group venues. Sally had never seen a live play before and was an instant fan. After the play, we went for a late dinner. Dinner was great and it led to more dates. After a couple of weeks, we dated exclusively until I got my degree. I found a job with a local electrical contracting company as an assistant engineer. I then asked her to marry me. She said yes. 18 months later, we were married. Carol was the maid of honor and Joan was the bridesmaid. It was a wonderful wedding and the reception was a lot of fun. As I said before, I had been a tinkerer since my high school days and I had several bakery and commercial restaurant equipment patents that the industry liked. I created a company to handle all of that while I was working as a construction electrical engineer. I had set it up so that all that money was placed in a company account, so I had something that was just mine. Through the company, I managed to secretly purchase the house we were renting. Things were going great for about 2 years. I was promoted to lead engineer on a major construction project. Sally had found a new job at an office in the local neighborhood. She thought that as we were now financially stable, it was time to start a family. We tried everything we could to get her pregnant. Nothing worked. After 3 years, we finally went to a specialist and found out that probably because of an injury I had in the service, my sperm count was extremely low. And what sperm I was producing was not motile. Sally went into a funk and our intimate life was turned off like a light switch had been flipped. I put up with it for 6 months or so and finally had enough. I sat down with Sally and said to her, "Sally, I am moving out. You obviously do not want any intimacy with me anymore. It is not my fault that I am infertile. If kids are more important to you than our life together, then maybe we should divorce." Sally started sobbing. "I don't want a divorce. I don't want you to leave. I am just so disappointed that we won't have kids that I forgot the fact that you are my life mate. Please don't go. I will try to be better." "That won't work. Your trying to be better is as much a problem as we have now. I don't want you to try. I want you to want to be better. I won't be far. And if you need me to do something for you, you can call me. I would suggest that we seek marriage counseling. If you don't want that, then you need to get counseling for yourself." I continued. "Sally, you are the sunlight and stars for me. I wanted to have a family with you. When I found out that I couldn't father children, I was hurt. But seeing you hurt is more than I can put up with. We will adopt children if that would make you happy. We can check fertility clinics about enhancements that might help. I just cannot go on sleeping next to a refrigerator as you have been for a while. When I try to hug you, you either back away like I am going to harm you or you are just like hugging a post. When was the last time you just kissed? Hell even spontaneously smiled at me. I love you with my very being. I am not leaving just because we haven't made love. And I can't be near you when the pain you are in is causing me so much pain. I finally wound down for my spiel. Sally was silent for a minute or two, then asked, "Where will you go? What will you do? When will you come back? If you're gone, how will you know I've gotten better? Please don't leave. To answer your questions, I will be right here in the city. I will keep working. I will not abandon you. I love you. I have to leave. Seeing you hurt like this is causing me so much pain that I am afraid that it will turn into anger. My mother has told me I could stay in the apartment over her garage. Your mother and dad have offered me an apartment in their building. I won't be far. Please get some help. I can't take this hurt you are causing me. I will be back when I can see that you love me enough to not shudder when I touch you." She just dropped her head, sobbed, and then snapped and screamed at me. "Fine, you asshole. Leave when things get tough. Just go. I will see a lawyer before I go to a goddamn shrink. Just go." This tirade was from the mouth of a lady that would not say piss if she was drinking it. I was shocked. I got up and walked to the bedroom and started packing my stuff. As I was packing, there were more than a few tears. I loaded up my car and the small trailer that we used when we went camping. It was not even a quarter full, but I was hoping that I would not be away long. I drove the 20 minutes that it took to get to my mother's house and started unpacking. About 2 hours later, Mom came up and told me Sally was on the phone. I told her, "Please take a message or have her call my cell phone." After that final tirade, I don't think I want more right now. I continued, "Mom, I'm sorry you are put in the middle of this. I love that woman to pieces, and yet I can almost catch a cold from trying to just get a kiss. I know you probably don't want to know, but we have not made love or just plain fucked since we found out I am sterile. I know Sally wants a family. I offered to get a divorce if it would make her happy. I am at a loss as to what to do. I am hoping that my moving out will be enough of a shock to force her to see her own hurt. If it doesn't, I may be here for a long time." I told Mom good night and went to bed. At work the next day, 2 detectives showed up at the construction site and they asked to talk to me. They said that they were following up on the burglary at my house last night. I was stunned. They explained that apparently someone tried to force a basement window last night at about 3 a.m. My wife called the police, and when the sirens got close, whoever it was chased off. They asked me why someone would want to burglarize my house. I explained to them that I had several gadgets that I had invented and some that I was working on. I told them that I had moved out temporarily and that I would go home tonight and check things out. The detective then dropped the bomb. "Sir, we have had to take your wife into the hospital. It looks like she had a psychotic episode. She is in no danger, but the patrolman who responded to the call said she was hysterical. She is now in the psych ward at City Hospital. The man who she was with was told by her to leave the house. I will get right over there to see her. Don't worry about my stuff. That is not worth one hair on her head." I went on. "Thank you and thank all the officers involved. I will do what I can to fix the problems." The fact a man was with her did not register until later the next day. When I got to the hospital, I was told that I was on the excluded visitors list. I would not be able to see Sally. I asked who made up the exclusion list. I was told Sally made some and the doctors made some. They told me that my wife put me on the excluded list. I was pissed. I decided then that that was the last straw. I went back to the apartment. I soaked for about an hour and then decided to be proactive. First I called the hospital and asked to talk to the doctor. He called me back almost immediately and told me I was also excluded from getting any medical information. More pissed. I called Sally's parents and told them what was going on. They said they were not in agreement with Sally's stance. They promised to keep me informed. I explained what had happened over the last few days. I also told them that Sally's actions had caused me to think I was right to move out. I let them get back to whatever they were doing and then called my mother. She had worked as a paralegal until she retired. I asked her for her best choice for a divorce shark. I explained that Sally was shutting me totally out of her life, so maybe my actions would force her to seek help. I said that maybe if we divorce she can have the children she is fixated on. She reluctantly gave me the name of Carrie Collins. I thanked her and let her get back to what she was doing. I then called the police and asked for a copy of the police report for my insurance. I was told it would be available in a half hour but needed to be picked up in person. No electronic transfer was legally allowed. I picked up the report and several things seemed to be wrong. The broken window was only 6 inches high by 24 inches wide. No one would be able to get through that space. Then there were only very small footprints noted as possibly female or child in the dirt around the window. Then the final thing was that Sally was not the only person in the house. The other person was a man by the name of John Walters. They were both dressed only in robes. The name sounded familiar but I could not remember where I had heard it. The report stated that neither occupant had seen who had tried to break in and that the female occupant was extremely agitated about the fact that both names would be in the police report. Finally, the man in the house comment registered. I then called Sally's work and the phone was answered by a man named John. I quickly said, Sorry, wrong number. Now I remembered where I had heard the name. John Walters was a sales associate at the office where Sally worked. I had met him once when she first started working there. I also remembered that his wife was the company owner. What was he doing in my house at 3 a.m.? The next day I called Carrie Collins and was surprised to hear that Carrie was a she. I made an appointment for later that day. I then called work and told them my assistant could handle anything, but I was taking the rest of the week as personal time. My boss called almost immediately and insisted that I report to work ASAP. I faxed my resignation less than 15 minutes later. He called back and apologized and granted the time off. Then I thought about it and sent a second resignation. No more calls from work. When I got to Carrie's office, I asked for a divorce filing and a suit against the office that Sally and John worked at. I also asked for a possible eviction notice as the house was owned by my company and Sally had no stake in that company. We were renting it from the company that I had set up to market my patents and gadgets. I explained that I had a police report that showed that Sally had a man at the house at 3 a.m. I also explained that I had temporarily left because of some problems with us. The man was there the same night that I left. Carrie told me that as Sally was under a 14-day mandatory hospitalization and that my insurance was paying for her hospitalization, she would void the medical information blackout or I would not authorize payment. She thought that I should immediately move back into the house. I should also cancel all joint credit cards. I should also call the bank and set up withdrawal limits on all joint accounts and cancel any joint ATM cards. After doing all of the bank things, I went back to the house and found John trying to enter the house. When I pulled into the driveway and blocked his car, he started toward me. I grabbed myself and called the police non-emergency and asked to talk to an officer. John came up to the car and motioned me to roll the window down. When I shook my head, No grabbed my wallet and showed him my ID. He took off running down the road. I just laughed and asked the officers if they had any information on the damage done to my house from the break-in. They said the only damage was the window caused by a drunken neighbor who wandered into the driveway, and when her key would not fit the door she kicked the window, and when it broke she ran off. She called the station the next day and told the desk she would pay the damages. I went into the house and into what was our bedroom and found that the dresser drawers that I had emptied had men's clothes in them. I went through all of the closets and the dresser and grabbed all the men's clothes that did not belong and took those out to the garage where we had a totally illegal incinerator. I left the garage door open hoping John would come back. He did as I was putting the last load in the incinerator. I smiled as he was walking up to the door. I called out to him and asked what I could do for him. He saw what I was doing and just shook his head and came in and said, "I probably deserved what you are doing. I thought Sally was divorced. She has been saying that you left her for another woman 6 months ago. So you felt you could move in? I rent this house and Sally has not paid a dime toward the rent. Sally has no claim on it. I moved out 3 days ago because of a freeze from my wife. I told her it was only temporary." I continued, "You and your wife's company will be hearing from my attorney soon." He paled and I laughed, then asked, "Would you like me to move my car so you can leave?" "Oh," I continued. "When you go see Sally, you can tell her that when she gets out, she needs to go to her parents' house because I will be taking all of her stuff there. Also, tell her I now understand the freeze." "One last thing," I screamed. "How long have you been screwing my wife?" He did not answer. Just got in his car and I let him out. Then I went back to the house and called a locksmith. I finished the afternoon by making copies of the police report. I made one copy for my insurance company if needed. I also made one copy for Sally's parents if they started to blame me for the problems. Then I put one copy in our safe in the basement. I was planning on putting the original in my personal safe deposit box in the bank. That box also contained all of the patent papers and a bank book where I put the money my patent licensing agreements made me. The job money and about 10% of the patent money were in our joint accounts, and that is all of the money Sally knows about. It is not much, but it is enough that if I have to split it, Sally will come out all right. The hidden money was because I wanted something that was mine only. The house Sally found out about, so she would not be able to go for it in a divorce. It would not be a deal breaker. I spent the next morning moving all of Sally's clothes, makeup, toiletries, and any pictures that did not have me into boxes that we had broken down and stored when Sally first moved in. The locksmith showed up in the early afternoon and changed the locks. I took all of the boxes to Sally's parents' apartment building and gave them a copy of the police report. They were not happy, but they took the stuff. I left. Carrie got back to me and said the non-payment threat was enough to get all of the medical information. It turns out Sally was about 6 weeks pregnant and had panicked when she realized the police were going to be finding out about Mr. Walters being at the house at that time. She actually screamed at the officers who arrived to investigate the break-in. Then she started screaming and crying. The officers restrained her and had her committed to a 14-day psychiatric evaluation. She lost the baby, and that really put her over the edge. The doctors wanted to commit her for 90 days as she was almost suicidal. They also noted that her hormones were elevated as if she was taking fertility drugs, but they could not find a prescription from any of the doctors that she identified as her being in their care. The note of the pregnancy was the final straw. I told Carrie that I wanted Sally served after she is released from the hospital. I explained to Carrie that I am virtually sterile and that the sperm that I do have are damaged. I also told her to immediately file suit against the company because they have a clear non-front policy. I told her to make it painful but not fatal. Part of the settlement was to be that they both be terminated with prejudice and receive no recommendation or severance package. The suit against the company was filed immediately, and Mrs. Walters informed Carrie through her lawyer that they would fight it. Carrie told the other attorney that we had proof of unprofessional conduct by both of them. She did not bring up the pregnancy but did mention the police report of John being in the house at 3 a.m. Their attorney told Carrie he would get back to them as his client never mentioned that fact. Carrie said she may not have known. At the mention of her, the lawyer told Carrie he would recommend a settlement. When the lawyers got back together, the settlement was reached. I got a decent amount of money and John and Sally were both fired. John's wife filed for divorce based on the police report. John had told her he was visiting a customer site and had been there that night to get an early start. I got all of that from one of the office people that Sally worked with. Sally walked out of the hospital before the commitment papers were filed. She was served on the sidewalk outside the hospital. She disappeared and I didn't hear from her for over a year. She did sign and return the divorce papers, but she asked for nothing from the marriage. Not even the split that she was entitled to. Almost 15 months after the divorce was final, I received an apology letter from Sally. It was postmarked from a small town in Montana. She did not give any details of her life after the divorce. The letter was just an apology for the pain she caused me. John had a run-in with a baseball bat the day after I got the apology from Sally. It seems that he had seduced the wife of a made man while he was in New York. I almost felt his pain. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.